Welcome, everybody. We did take our October meeting off. It is today, November 4th, 2021, 12:07 p.m., and I'll call this meeting to order. We'll start by our roll call. Elia Guevara,
Present.
Mayra Hernandez,
Present.
Cesar Garay,
Present.
John Villarreal,
Present.
Arturo Dominguez, Ray Rocha,
Present.
Rafael Dueñas present, George Algelt, and Julian Ratnowski.
Present.
If anybody else comes, we'll let the record reflect that they are here with us. But for now, we
You
have,
do have a quorum, and I'd just like to point out, Mr. Chairman, if I may, in your packets, I did include, as usual, the attendance log. It's got all members' names, absences, and counts, and the dates of absences. Just to remind the committee that 4 absences is the limit for the year.
thank
Is
you
it
for the
4
update.
or 3?
It's 4.
4. Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
We do, as of right now, we do have a quorum. We are just missing George Algelt and Arturo Dominguez. Agenda item number 3, we switched it. The agenda reflects that it says no available minutes for October 2021. We do
Chairman,
have
how about the minutes?
the minutes for September 2009th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to
Motion.
approve.
Motion by Julian, a second.
Second.
Second by Mayra. Discussion? No discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? None against, motion carries unanimously. Welcome, Mr. Arturo Dominguez. And do we have any citizen comments?
Mr. Chairman, no, the cutoff is 11:45 before the meeting, and as of the time of the meeting start, there were no public comments that were submitted for this agenda.
Perfect. Welcome, Mr. Dominguez. We have agenda item 5A, which is the Laredo Economic Update presentation by our Economic Development Director, Teclo Garcia, who is joining us virtually and will give us that update. Welcome, Mr. Garcia.
Mr. Chairman, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rafa, much appreciated. Arnold, thank you for your work, and thank you for filling in today. Everyone, hopefully you met Karina Valdez, our new administrative assistant. She's done a great job so far. We look forward to working with her in the future. Mr. Chairman, one other thing before I'd like to start, I just want to thank Maya and Kevin for all their work that they did along the river and cleanup. Some of that is about volunteerism and fighting the community and also about the environment, but it's also about economic development. When people see, when business owners, investors, and other people see community efforts like that, and points of pride in the community, that means something to them. And having visuals like that and those kind of optics for Laredo, that means a lot. So I want to thank Ida and her team and Tamu for doing that effort. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, so to the presentation, let me share my screen here. And stop me, Arnold, you're the one I can hear the best, so you can stop me if someone has a question or something needs to be, we need to pause or point something out.
Okay, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, this, and committee, this is a presentation, I'm using, we are using, in front of different groups as we go out there, whether it be trade shows or Rotary speeches or in front of investors in Mexico. And Mr. Chairman, you know this presentation because you were present when we got in front of the Seed Pro group, the clusters group in Querétaro. retail, number one port for exports, number three long haul, land and port, number one city start a business according to Wallet Hub, and we're the number one safest large city in Texas. Another group found us to be the number two safest city in Texas, behind Plano. So, I mean, those are really good bragging points for us. Next slide.
Teclo,
Kind of highlighting our trade. I won't read everything that's on here, but
Tecla, we've got a question by committee member, Mr. John Villarreal.
Now, just want to mention that as far as being a safe city, it's a very safe city, and a lot of like the homicides are really more domestic in nature, as opposed to being like cartel driven or drug driven.
Mark, can you repeat that, please?
He mentioned about the homicide.
Yeah, no, that a lot of the homicides are more domestic violence driven as opposed to, I mean, there are like drug related driven.
That's a great point, John, thank you. So here's slide number three, page three. The point is here is that, you know, we're the third busiest land port, third busiest port, period, in the United States. Air, sea, or land. We handle 60% of all Texas-Mexico trade, and about $60 billion or more of our trade, of our $200 billion, is auto content. Next page. This is a picture page just kind of to break up our presentation. As you can see there, you know, we have UP, it's kind of got trains, planes, and automobiles kind of thing. This is for folks who don't know so much about Laredo. We just give them a quick little background. And usually I'll talk to this.
This is back to the old stomping ground, huh?
You even got your old chair, right?
Tecla,
George?
Mr. Chairman, let the record reflect that Mr. Algill is present.
That was in my office, this would be the replacement chair. Many you don't know what, that sat in that chair. Gentlemen.
Go ahead, Tecla.
Just a welcome to George.
Oh, yes.
Hey, Teclo.
Okay, so next page, we're just in the middle of the presentation. I mentioned to the group that this is something that we use when we get in front of groups and at trade shows, in front of investors, etc. And it's on our homepage, so anyone can download it and use it how they like. Where in the world are we? This just kind of points out to folks where we're at in terms of distances and location. Some key cities that there also that we trade with a lot. Some more numbers in terms of our statewide impact. The Texas Comptroller says that the Port of Laredo impacts 474,000 jobs across the state, whether it be part-time employment, full employment, recreation. So that's a really big impact. And as you can see there's some numbers that coincide with what the Texas Comptroller is saying. If you look at the bottom of the page, there's a number that says approximately 10,000 freight train crosses annually. Well, right now, as some of you know, we're working on with Casey Southern on their new bridge span. They've received a presidential permit to do that, and so that number, I mean, potentially it could double. It may not completely double, but definitely there will be a lot more train movements once that other span is built. Okay, next page. These are our top trading partners. As you can see there, you can see the numbers that just as they come up. You know, there's a lot of ports that don't even do $1 billion worth of trade. 1.2 billion with China last year. We did 550 million with France. And then other Pacific Rim nations like Thailand and Indonesia, we did another billion with them. And so far this year, we're at about 500 million with Japan for some reason. I haven't found out exactly what's driving that, but we'll look into it some more and get you an answer. Next page. These are the top commodities that we're trading at the port. I mean, we have about, I don't know, 300 or 400 categories, but these are some of our top 60 billion in auto parts, 23 billion new autos, 14 billion in computer and cell phone equipment, 4 billion in annual produce trade, and then a billion in fresh and frozen meats. And this year on the fresh and frozen meats, we're gonna surpass that number by quite a bit. In fact, if I can just pause for a second, this year's trade is we're at about, I think 16% of last year on trade valuation, how much trade we're doing back and forth. Last year, in 2020, we were only down 4% over the previous year in terms of trade. So we're up, 12 to 16% over last year. And we've had a record year, and Mr. Dominguez, is Mr. Dominguez here?
Yes, sir, he is.
We have a full
Yes.
committee.
I think Mr. Dominguez and the Bridge Advisory Committee, they received a report from CBP saying that trade was up 12%.
That's correct.
Over last year. So these numbers are ringing true, what we're hearing so far. Okay, next page. Again, these are, like I said, you guys know this, very well, but this is something we tell other folks who aren't so familiar with Laredo, that we have 4 international bridges plus 1 plan. We have a rail bridge, plus another on the way. That we're at the nexus of I-35 and 83 US Highway 59 on the US side. We're the headquarters for the US Customs District in this region. And we have intermodal yards at Union Pacific and KC Southern. And intermodal is big for a lot of folks. They like to move stuff in trains from Mexico to the US, put them on trucks, disperse those goods in a faster way. That's a luxury a lot of cities don't have. McAllen doesn't have it. Harlingen has a very small one. There are intermodal yards in San Antonio, some of the biggest cities. I think El Paso has one. But to have 2 from the 2 biggest lines in the country, that's a pretty good asset.
Teklo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Something that we have that other ports don't have is equipment, empty trailers. And trailers,
Say it again?
equipment, trailers, empty trailers and trucks ready to haul. That's something we have that other ports don't have, and that's a big advantage to
You're
us.
exactly right. You're exactly right. With drivers and trucks in short demand, that's a huge advantage for us. Let me go to the next page so we can move along here. This is about the airport, $286 million in funded facility upgrades in the last decade or so, mainly in replacing the tarmac on our cargo side with a series of federal grants, but other improvements have been made. We have about $140 million in new logistics projects that are just beginning around the airport. It's something that the economic development is assisting the airport with. First, they have the 24-hour joint U.S.-Mexico Customs facility where CBP and SAT are in the same building, and that's very unique. No other airport has that in the $1.5 million, terminal expansion project is just beginning underway with consultants. And the airport's the fifth busiest airport in the United States and trade with Mexico. I mean, the airport also receives aircraft from Central America and the Caribbean and Canada, but in trade with Mexico, it's the busiest. Next page. Just some major projects that are not necessarily economic development driven. Some of these are textile projects. Some of these, the $500 million in warehouse construction. That's just in general through in Laredo in the last couple of years. The $200 million in water infrastructure that's underway by our water department right now. We're also doing the $2 million in past lanes at the World Trade Bridge. And in the pictures, you see a picture of Port Grande at the beginning of their $1 billion service, and then underneath there, I don't think I've showed y'all the picture before, but that's a photo of what the CBP plant facility at the airport's going to look like. I think we're getting 2 buildings at the beginning with the $30 million. They're going to start construction in the spring, and then they're going to add to that. But that's what's going to house their helicopters and allow them to expand the number of employees that they have by about 40. They'll bring in more pilots, they'll bring in more mechanics, that kind of thing. Right now, they're super crowded and really small hangar. And this is funded by the federal government. Next page. Just some more projects that, recent developments that happened in Laredo. These are all commercial and private sector projects, like the Mission Produce building that you see there, which Governor Abbott came down, you guys are aware of that. But U.S. Gold, built a $35 million facility. They'd like to expand. FedEx has built a $24 million facility. And some of you in the trade and broker business know that FedEx's facility in Laredo is called a gateway center, which means that any freight from Texas and the East Coast and going all the way to the East Coast, anything that weighs 150 pounds and has to go to Mexico, unless it's specified to be on air, they bring it to Laredo and they process it here for the trust. $20 million Westpac, this is something that, an agreement that the EDAC approved, and they're still, closing on their property, waiting to see where they can break ground. And then the Sunset Produce facility as well, we did a 380 agreement before the EDAC was formed. Pardon me, not before the EDAC was formed, before we started bringing these agreements to the EDAC, that 380 was done by our legal department. We did it with them, but that's who signed off on it. Here's a bunch of Fortune 500 firms and Fortune 1000 firms and a few others that are in Laredo. I think this is an eye-opener for a lot of folks when we talk about this on the road, especially in the U.S., not so much in Mexico. Mexico tends to know the Port Laredo better than the U.S. does. And, but a lot of folks don't realize that we have all these companies here, creating a lot of jobs and contributing a lot to the local economy. This is another slide. We're getting close to the end here, but this, some of the positive qualities that we have that we talk about to folks, and we talk about our job growth, our small business, our household income has grown 60% since 2010, we're 57,000, and our workforce is about 120,000 folks. Again, some of our educational assets, which are really important, Laredo College and TAMU and Workforce Solutions, all working together along with our school districts to provide a good workforce. And that's always a question. And having Arnold, kind of turn more toward economic development, the job description now, instead of grants, he's been working on some of this workforce stuff, and he's gonna represent us at the Texas Workforce Conference, in a couple of weeks, right, Arnold, I think it's November 17th?
17th through 19, yes, sir.
Again, this is something to show people that don't know Laredo very well, some of the assets that we have here. It's not just, not just trucks here in town.
Mexican food.
And we're getting more and more assets, we're trying to build those and trying to show those off as we get them. And that kind of concludes the presentation, some contact points here. I have to remove Jeff Miller in our last page here, the airport director we just left, but we'll replace that and make that change as we go forward.
Tecla, one thing as far as recreation, and I know that not everybody is a member of the country club, but you bring a lot of the executives that come here, they want to know that there's a good country club, and I think we have a good one here.
Yes, yes, you're right, and we should mention that. In fact, there were some guys that came down from a cold storage place recently, John, and they said I noticed they were kind of rushing, through our visit, and I said, hey, do you have a plane to catch? And they said, no, we have a tea time at the country club. So, yeah, you're right, you should play that up.
Yeah, and the hunting and the mountain biking as well. I mean, that's kind of in that country club echelon of disposable.
Better mountain bike. I was wanting to put a mountain bike picture. That's something that people that you know very well, from being in different places. That's something that people don't associate Laredo with, but yet is here. And so yes, I agree. I'll do my best to get that on there.
And if you look at the La Bota Trail, it's in the top 50 mountain bike trails, number 36 in the state of Texas, and people come from far and wide to ride it because it's right up on the banks of the river. But I'm a little biased there. Perhaps somebody else should speak on the subject. But but whitetail deer hunting is also a big industry and a big recreational activity for the, it was the original country club before there was the country club.
Well, I mean, we have that. I mean, we have a state park within our state limits. I mean, how unique is that?
Second most visited state park in the state park system at that, eclipsed only by Garner State Park.
I love Garner State Park. Awesome. Okay, yes, no, exactly.
Any questions regarding?
I just want to give you a flavor.
Okay.
I'll take any more questions, but I want to give you a flavor of what we're talking about when we're out there. And this is a working document. It's a live reading thing. So I've already updated like 3 times in the last 2-3 months. And so I'll continue to update as we get new numbers or better photos or add more slides, things like that. And so that's one thing, with these slideshows and things that we post, we have to be really careful not to let them get old. Because if people see that and they'll see a number from 2017 or something like that, it makes us look bad. And so we're trying to stay on top of that as part of the job that we do here.
Mr. Garcia, Julia Ronovsky has a question.
Yes, Mr. Garcia. What I wanted to ask is, I appreciate the entire presentation, but I'm just a little curious. What are we doing else besides trying to attract trade? Because I think everyone here would agree, not only is it our bread and butter, but it's not exactly that's something that's really difficult to bring to Laredo because of where we're located and our assets in the bridge. What are we doing to possibly diversify our local economy on bringing other types of jobs or possibly parlaying this trade industry into other sectors?
When you mean diversify, can you explain that? What do you mean by that?
So this entire presentation was just purely based on trade and warehousing? Are we trying to bring tech? Are we trying to bring, I know in our Laredo Economic Development Comprehensive Plan that was adopted by the city of Laredo, we very much talk about health and hospitals. What are we doing as an economic development department on trying to attract those industries here?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, and, you know, we've been able to, in the last, I would say, 18 months, and, we've been able to launch several programs to help small businesses. Anywhere, from, business grants to the one we just got approved by city council, and something that y'all actually okayed here recently was the 0% loans for small businesses. So those small businesses can be of any kind. When we got the federal funds, we did about 104 small business grants. We're gonna do another another $2 million, in the next, well, I guess we're gonna start in a few months.
Let me, if I may,
From today's agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
let me, I guess, translate for you.
But we're gonna do another $2 million, we're gonna do $2 million worth of funding. We're also going to, do about, we're gonna do about $2 million more in workforce training, which we did, last year we did about $700,000 in workforce training, and we got about 700, people, certified in certain jobs, whether it be CDL, to dental assistants, et cetera. I can't remember all the titles, X-ray,
Teclo,
Microsoft,
Teclo,
forklift jobs.
He's on mute.
We have also.
can you hear us?
No.
He's on a roll. He's unstoppable, baby.
So we're gonna do another $2 million, maybe we can reach 1,500, folks this time. So that's another.
Arnold, are we on mute?
That we're doing is extremely important to Laredo, because as you know,
So finish.
our graduation rates are low. Our college.
Teclo, can you hear?
Yeah, you click the chat button
Comparatively. So workforce,
and then just
training
him.
is.
I don't think-
Maybe has a question.
We hope to launch an apprenticeship program.
That's not answering my question.
For you, and that's something that Arnold, you know, is going to be, working on as he, as he, gets into the workforce area, and, so that's extremely important. We've reached out to do, medical, and we've made some gains here. I hope to make an announcement, and bring a project before y'all that's medically related, that could create, up to 100 jobs, and have about, anywhere between a $12 and $30 million investment. We're not sure yet on that, but we're working that out.
Arnold, can you hear us?
Teclo, can you hear us, sir? Sorry to interrupt.
The other
Teclo.
topics to bring up, I mean, they're top of mind and they're priority for us.
Es una grabación.
But as you know, our workforce, we have to have the right workforce in order to, you know, train, and bring, you know, tech jobs here, or even manufacturing jobs here. So we're working on that.
Teclo, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We'll go
So
ahead and start
one of-
with, George wanted to chime in first, and then we'll have, Ms. Hernandez
Yeah,
follow up.
and just to touch on what Julian was saying, Mr. Rodnowski was saying.
And then we'll start to wrap up, sorry.
Sure.
So we can
It,
get
it,
to
it
this
seems like it's a
agenda
reoccurring theme, right? Like every economic development presentation I've ever witnessed being put on by the city of Laredo in the last at least 6+ years was, our port, the port's -- the port's growing, port's doing all these great things, and that's awesome, right? But when you look at the comprehensive plans delineation of, hey, congratulations, City of Laredo, you got all your eggs in this one basket, right? What happens if the price of diesel spikes, or there's if NAFTA 2.0 or whatever economic factors come about, like then what, right? And so that's why the experts that we paid lots of money to said, look, you have to diversify your portfolio. And I feel like we're all kind of yelling at a brick wall, because we've had this conversation on multiple occasions about what the comp plan said. The comp plan said, hey, you all could be a regional healthcare hub, assume that role, start providing those incentives, investing in those areas, make those things happen. As it relates to the tech sector and I guess kind of the ones and zeros, the substance of the transportation industry, like fleet management software and fuel management software, like what about all of those components? Where are we at in addressing those smaller economic, I guess, what do we call those? There's a fancy $5 word for it, the economic
Cluster analysis?
Clusters.
Parlaying a cluster into another opportunity.
Right, and so we don't see that in these presentations, and it's almost like they're not being really considered. And then you add like the downtown redevelopment and bringing housing, inner city redevelopment, like that's such low-hanging fruit, and we just blow past it, on our way, down I-35 and crossing bridges into Mexico when there's so much more left to be done. But those are my comments. I would hope at some point in time our economic development department could go back to the comp plan and really make material those key components.
We have Mayra who wanted to share something.
Just a quick comment. The UT system is coming down to the city of Laredo now. The UT Health Science San Antonio at Laredo is now going to be the UT Health Science.
Mark, can you repeat her comments, please?
Yes, UT Health Science Center.
It's coming.
San Antonio at
San Antonio at
Laredo
Laredo is
will be converting to the UT system,
they're going to be converting to the UT system.
and they're going to be bringing down healthcare programming.
So we're gonna
In
be putting
addition
down healthcare
to
programs.
Texas A&M International having, and then of course Laredo Community College having that. So I think that's something that would be beneficial for you to kind of immerse yourself and see what is it that they're bringing down to this community for the workforce opportunities as well. And maybe we can start putting it as part of our presentation.
If I can just add one note, where my question is really coming from is during the Inner City Housing Summit, they brought someone in from Dallas that did essentially an entire economic little study, and he showed how, and I think we all know this because we always talk about brain drain and how a lot of children, once they get of age, they leave Laredo. He actually showed a net migration loss for the city, which is incredibly alarming. And I'll send that study to everyone here, including Theclo. But it's really, really interesting because finally, we're able to actually see it in the numbers. And the concern is are we going to turn the entire city of Laredo into a giant warehouse? Because if our focus is just more warehousing, which is great, it really contributes, but we don't provide other types of jobs, we are setting ourselves up for a possible failure due to just focusing on trade and that being all our eggs. Michael, can I finish, please?
We're doing job, workforce training, we're recruiting medical. I mean, I don't know why you insist on saying that in every meeting, Julian, including at the.
Well, he's not the only one
Mr.
saying
Garcia,
it.
your presentation was 90% transportation.
Yeah.
Probably 95% transportation. I'm going by what you have in your presentation. I insist on
We'll have
stating
one at a
the
time,
things that
that
I
way we
see.
can hear each other out.
We're getting ready to blow 20 minutes.
We'll start to wrap up this agenda item, which was just a economic update presentation on behalf of our director.
But, Mr. Chairman, Julian's not the only one saying that. But everybody in the economic development community except Theclo is saying that.
Well,
And we're all seeing, my kids have already told me that they're northbound and maybe not headed back.
I disagree, but the point of this was,
What we should do with part of the comp plan is I think it's time that we update it because some of the things that are in there are really great and excellent.
the point of this was simply for our economic development director to give us a presentation.
Regarding COVID and et cetera. For instance, one of the priorities in the comp plan for economic development is to develop more home health. The number one priority is to develop home health health companies. Well, we all know that home health companies have gone by the wayside, and that's not gonna create the jobs that we're looking for. So I think an update would be good, to kind of tweak it.
Our city charter requires us to update the comp plan once a year, which we have not done, and that falls on council.
I agree with Mr. Garcia. We also need to add metrics so we understand if we're actually following the comprehensive plan.
Right, because
We don't have that
We don't
right
have any
now.
data, yeah.
So hopefully for the next meeting, we can start doing that.
Well, should we have that be an agenda item for the next, our next meeting to see where we're at with the comp plan, and then have it be, suggest to council, recommend to council to adopt and update an updated version of the comp plan?
The agenda items are usually always created by you guys. I would like to see a little bit more participation in seeing y'all's vision carried out, because you guys have you're appointed on this committee for such a reason. Going back to your presentation, Mr. Garcia, thank you so much for the update.
Mr. Chair?
You heard the comments of certain members that want to update and help support you in giving a better visual of how to market our city. We'll have a final comment by Mr. Dominguez.
Thank you, Mr. Dueñas. Teclo, can you hear me?
Yes.
After 2017, the burst at World Trade Bridge, the SAT is on the US side now, and they do dual inspections for your, and then Colombia, being more proactive, they have the SAT, they have COFEPRIS, the agriculture part on the US side, and now they requested customs in case that the electricity goes down on the Mexican side, they can process pedimentos on the US side. So that's something that customs also would like to see at World Trade Bridge. But those are things I think are important so that people or somebody looking at the port, that we play proactive with Mexico as well. Thank you.
So there you go, Mr. Garcia. Thank you so much for the presentation. Personally, I think the whole city is doing a great job. The whole department has been doing very good. One, in marketing the city of Laredo, the EDAC committee as well. So this isn't a point of argument. It's rather more a point of growing together and helping you give pointers in what we can do to develop and grow this presentation in order to market and continue to attract business. The 2021 already flew by, but we definitely made a lot of good progress. We had the Chapter 380 guidelines be formed. We had a lot of 380 agreements come to fruition, more jobs, minimum wage, providing better medical health care for employees for the city of Laredo. So I think we're on a good route. There is always room for improvement. Constructive criticism is always good, not in terms of arguing, but in terms of, hey, this is what we can do better. So I think if we unite our voices, 2022 will be even greater. We'll move on to presentation item 5B. Discussion and possible action regarding the creation of a Sister Cities Plaza. This was proposed by myself, Rafael Dueñas, the chairman, and the Sister Cities Agreement is a binational agreement that occurs between two local municipalities. And in order through this agreement, what you seek is, one, a humanitarian effort to help each other out. So the city of Laredo has to renew their equipment every so often, from laptops, ambulances, firefighter trucks, police cars. And this, although it may not be helpful for the city of Laredo, it's definitely very beneficial to other cities and whom we have partnerships with. So the items often by council get donated, and through CVB as well. The other part of the Sister Cities Agreement is a cultural exchange. We've seen the Sister Cities Festival once a year, and they come and they'll do bailables, they'll have shows, every city gets to promote a little bit of their culture and the product and their artisans. And then lastly, which is the one where we can play a role in, is economic development. The reason for this partnership in binational agreement is also to seek out a way of, hey, what can we do to grow each other? What can we import from your city, from your state, and what can we export over there as well? So the creation of this Sister Cities Plaza would be to attract that foreign business from whoever we're partnered in sister cities and about through the binational agreement, and have them come and open up their business here in our sister cities plaza. The location that I'm looking at is definitely downtown. I already spoke with Councilwoman Cigarroa, but they would in essence seek how exactly the technicalities of it would be done. So this Sister Cities Plaza would be created to, one, attract foreign investment, create something unique for the city of Laredo that will attract commerce to our downtown area, and incentivize our sister city merchants, business owners, and foreign investors.
Isn't that what Mile 1 does?
Mile 1,
Can I turn it on?
go ahead.
Mile
No,
one is,
not exactly.
Mile one is supposed to be an incubator for anyone that's just trying to start like a business. It's more of a broad brush. If someone's looking for some temporary space or just like, you know, a little area to work, it can be from tech to someone that's kind of doing CPA work out of there.
Oh, can I say something?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mile One it's having a program for Mexican investors. It's like a kind of business accelerator program. And they give you any kind of counseling regarding immigration, and it's something like that are you trying to?
The plaza would just be an establishment where we can set a fixed rate for those who are partnered with our sister cities agreement to come in and open their businesses in there.
More
At a
retail,
lower rate.
more retail.
Retail
Yeah, Mile one's
centered.
not retail center.
Okay.
So that would be different.
So for example, in Zacatecas, they have a lot of huichol. We can go look at huicholeros. In Oaxaca, there's a lot of sculptures. See San Mateo Atenco, whom we also have a partnership with. They do a lot of shoes, Guanajuato as well. So retails of that sort that are unique products that will attract commerce back to downtown. So I'll make the motion to create, recommend to council the creation of a Sister Cities Plaza to incentivize and attract investment from our sister cities partners and find a location in the downtown area.
Do we know what the costs are?
No, council would work with that with management, but it'd definitely be lowered, a lowered rate.
And by plaza, like, you mean like a physical plaza?
It could be I'm letting Councilwoman Cigarroa decide on the exact spot. I know around the Center of the Arts, there's two casas disponibles. It could be a city building, or they could go into a private-public partnership with downtown owners of establishment.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Julie Rodnowski.
Before we move on, what was your motion again?
To recommend to council the creation of a Sister Cities Plaza and to incentivize and attract investment from our sister cities and find a location in the downtown area.
Okay.
Seconded by Julie Ratnowski. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? None against. Motion carries unanimously.
Bill Arnold.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we can hear you.
I just want to congratulate the chairman and the committee for supporting that. I think that's an extremely important program for Laredo, a great tool for us to recruit investment, and great job. So, Rafa, thank you very much for doing that, and thank you for having the foresight to get involved with that, and we look to do some really good agreements here in the near future.
Now you'll be able to include the Sister Cities Plaza in your presentation. Agenda item 5C is a presentation on the outcome of the Laredo Inner Housing Summit held on September 29th, 2021 at Laredo College by our Vice Chair, Julian Ratnowski.
So there were a lot of great presentations, and it took a while for me to collect all the links, but I'll be sending it to everyone so you can see all the presentations. Basically, the synopsis of what a lot of it was is we have a very underutilized inner city that people aren't reinvesting in. Right.
Speak louder.
Is the mic? Okay. that we have a very underutilized inner city throughout Laredo, where we actually have a lot of empty blocks or buildings that just are not inhabitable, which is further exacerbating the general issue of Laredo, which is right now we have a major affordable housing problem. A lot of cities are suffering from this. Laredo's not the only one, but we are a lot more behind on it, especially when it comes to the inner city. A lot of discussion was based off of how the city can partner with the private sector to work to incentivize not only the redevelopment of existing buildings, but the development of empty lots all throughout the inner city so that we can bring more housing units to the market. But not just, there was a lot of focus on not just housing units, but making sure that, you know, well-built, you know, very inhabitable units, not these low-cost developments that sometimes you see in other
Like
cities.
mixed market housing?
Specifically mixed income. So, which is very different than, you know, when you think of Section 8 or when you think of market rate. The idea behind it is that you have, it's kind of literally what it sounds like.
Hey, Julian, can you, sorry to interrupt, can you turn your mic on, please?
They're on, Teclo, maybe releasing the mic. I mean, we've tried and exhausted everything here.
Is this
Teclo,
helping?
Apologize.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. I'm sorry, where was I at? Mixed income housing is exactly what it sounds like. It's different income levels. It's not just strictly, you know, purely low income or market rate. The purpose of a lot of that is study after study has shown that is the best way to do affordable housing units. Another item is what that was discussed there, which was a little shocking, was the study on the net migration loss. He couldn't really point exactly to the fact of what necessarily is causing it, but he did actually make a point to say that this is concerning and this needs to be studied on finding out exactly what is the reason why we're losing a lot of individuals that enter Laredo. From what I understood from the study, it's not targeting migration in the sense of, you know, the illegal immigration. It's purely based off people that moved into the Laredo and then eventually leave. So you're showing a loss there. But a lot, to sum up, a lot of what happened at that summit was that there was a need for this 2 years ago. COVID actually exacerbated it, and pretty much we need to move on this immediately. I know the Inner City Housing Summit has their own little committee that is working on working with a firm, HRNA, on putting together a inner city housing incentive policy and what that would look like for Laredo. They're the same company that actually developed San Antonio's inner city housing incentive policy. And I think we all know from the past 10 years what San Antonio's inner city looked like, you know, back in 2010 to today is drastically different. And a lot of that is attributed to how the city stepped up on incentivizing housing throughout the inner city.
Julian, question for you. So where are we on the recoding? Because doesn't that have to take place before we can start getting, like, for example, mixed use, downtown, residential?
Yeah, so on the Recode Laredo, that particularly targets, or mainly targets expansion, so new developments, so from ground up, or new platting. I don't, the city's gonna have to speak on behalf of that. I don't know where they're at the process and if they are considering, you know, higher density zonings that would allow for that density. For the inner city, what we really struggle from, and we're not unique, San Antonio did, Austin did, they all did. We have a lot of old buildings, and any developer knows it actually costs more to redevelop a building than to build a new building. And because of all of the codes that are required, it's very, very costly to redevelop a lot of buildings that have been blighted. So typically how cities step in is, okay, you know, we understand now you have to like jerry-rig a new sprinkler system into the building. If you target, you know, student housing or mixed income housing, we'll come in and give an incentive to you to offset that cost. And it's always, long-term in the best interest of the city, because, if you can bring back these neighborhoods, those property values go up. Therefore, the tax revenue goes up, therefore it pays for that. So not only is it it pays for itself in quality of life, because you're bringing more affordable units and well-built units to the city, but in the long term, it ends up paying back also.
But to John's point, though, the original version of Recode Laredo, as it was sent to the company to come up with the new set of codes, was to do just that. It was to provide an infrastructure, a statutory infrastructure that would allow for the redevelopment of existing structures in a way that would be cost effective, that would not eliminate but mitigate a lot of the very draconian interpretations that the fire marshal and the building department currently applies to any, just like someone like Hank Sames, who just beat his head up against a brick wall trying to bring us siete banderas. It shouldn't be that difficult. Like, you shouldn't need to come kneel and genuflect before a politician to get it done. You ought to just be able to go through it and say, okay, well, let's get it done. On the economic development side of things, the Economic Development Department should be able to come up with a rubric on, hey, look, if you're going to invest X amount of money in this zone, then in that instance, we'll be able to abate, property taxes or whatever the 380 or whatever other tool of the trade can be used to make that happen. Excuse me, Declan, I'm speaking in a minute. You can do another filibuster.
He can't hear.
He can't hear.
No, maybe even better that way. A lot of times he doesn't listen when we talk anyway. But so, to my point is that we need to have a recoding that is not just so pro new development, so that we can bring about meaningful inner city and downtown redevelopment, specifically housing, because everybody's talking about, oh, well, the mall or the conference center or now the 4 blocks. And when you look at the data, what drives redevelopment is humans living in an area who then go to the grocery store or go to the coffee shop. That's what drives the redevelopment. It's not put in a conference center and 4 times a year it fills up and the rest of the year it's empty, or a mall that was brought in 10 years too late in this online shopping era that we're in. Meaningful Joe Minicozy grade development that is vertical and not horizontal takes place with human bodies living in an area that have disposable income to drive other businesses. And that's what's so missing from the last presentation. That's what Councilmember Bettis was driving at when she was calling out the EDC. Like, hey, like really? Like, it's just more trade? Like, it's just more, we do it well, and thank God. But there's got to be some mixture here. If not, it's just all eggs
This is
in one
Declan.
basket.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, no, you're right, Mr. Argo, that's exactly what we need to do. We're working on it. Things take time, but the points you bring up, especially about housing, are correct. One thing I just want to clarify, the presentation that I mentioned, that's not our economic development strategy as appointed by the city council, that's just what we take to some trade shows and we get in front of investors. That's what we're using there. So I don't want you to think that that's all what we do. That's just that one presentation. We do a lot of stuff, and we've even taken direction from EDAC and the council regarding downtown and small businesses and other things. So yeah, we're trying to do as much as we can. A question for Mr. Radnowski is Julian, do you think that there was enough council participation at that housing summit, and do you think it would be a smart idea if maybe yourself and the chairman or something like like that, do a presentation, or at least we can try to put in a presentation for the council on what was done at that meeting?
I think the reason why there wasn't enough representation is I think that same day was when
Mission Produce card.
Mission Produce came in and Greg Abbott came in. But I do agree that a presentation needs to be given to council regarding all this. What I'd like to defer to is that the Inner City Housing Committee that they've kind of been running with that themselves, and I'm sure at a given point that will be presented to council. But I do agree with you,
Mr.
Mr.
Hernandez
Garcia.
had something you want to say?
No, just for time, is there anything else that we need for this one so we can go to the
No,
MOU? Because I think there's an
we'll-
action item.
Any other update, Julian?
No, just to
Perfect.
clarify something real quick, that's the fire code. I don't think the city is updating the fire code, nor typically when you update the fire code, does it actually make it simpler to develop. That's a lot of the time, that's on the interpretation of the fire chief.
We'll move on to action item 6A, discussion with possible action to review MOU agreement with Laredo College for workforce development training under the city's American Rescue Plan funding by Mr. Teclo Garcia.
Yes, I'm gonna let Arnold take the lead on this, but this is something we've worked on before. Arnold, you wanna go ahead and explain? This is something that I referred to when I was talking about the presentation.
Sure, yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Members of EDAC, Mr. Chairman, what you have before you is a draft MOU agreement with Laredo College for workforce development skills training, redevelopment skills training for individuals that have experienced furlough or layoff or underemployment due to the pandemic. This is actually the second time that we've done this as a city. The first time with CARES money, we did 900,000 in total. 700 of that was to Laredo College. 200,000 of that was to Workforce Solutions, forgive me. They were actually able to match that with a grant that they had. So we had a little over $1 million that we were working with. This one is something that council laid out for the economic development a couple of council meetings ago. They set aside $3 million of the ARP funding that we got as part of the CARES 2.0, if you will. They set aside $3 million of that for small business grants. In subsequent conversations with council and with Teclo, we came up with, this is very necessary for the city, for small businesses that are still being affected by the pandemic, a year, almost 2 years later. So we were able to get council to agree to move $1 million out of that $3 million for the grants to focus just on workforce development and training through Laredo College. Tentatively, Laredo College has agreed to match that dollar for dollar, so we're looking at about $2 million worth of workforce development and training. This is a draft of the MOU. It's very similar to the first one that I believe that was before the EDAC before. It kind of mimics the same language because it's basically virtually almost the same program, but we're gonna be focusing now on different courses now. So that's what we are negotiating with Laredo College to find out, what industries, what workforce that we need to be looking at. But once that's all developed and brought together, that'll be included in the draft as an exhibit to go before council for approval.
And we did have this draft sent to us via email.
I have a question. So you already did this before?
We've done this before, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so do you follow through these individuals and once they get the benefit, for these courses, all these individuals, do you do a follow through?
You're talking about maybe like wraparound service?
Yes, like, if they really took advantage of this benefit, all these people doing the courses, do they complete the course? Are you sure that all these people really?
As part of the agreement, we have not. The main purpose here is giving the training for people who can sign a letter of attestation that they were, one, affected by the pandemic, that they're underemployed, they're unemployed, or they've been furloughed. So the main point of this agreement is to make sure that those people that are experiencing that at least get those certifications to get back in. But in no way is the agreement binding Laredo College or the city to any type of job retention or job placement.
Another question, is it just job training, like trade basic skills, or is it beyond?
No, it's beyond. Actually, Teclo alluded to some of the courses we did on the first round. So we did a lot of CDL truck driving. As Mr. Algill said, that's kind of the bread and butter. So there's a lot of job openings For logistics, we can't fill them all. We tried our best with the first round. We're gonna try our best the second round. The first one did focus on other things such as medical assistance, the healthcare industry, where we're kind of short. We
Realtor.
focused on that. So for this one's gonna be kind of the same. The last one, we had a lot of bookkeeping for small businesses that when they tried to get the grants the first round through the city, they had a little bit of trouble meeting the requirements through LIF Fund to get those money. They couldn't keep their books right. So we provided those trainings for them to, to be more astute.
Arnold,
Yes, sir.
pardon, this is Teclo. I think the top ones, according to Michael, were CDL, forklift certification, medical assistant, dental assistant, a pharmacy tech was really big. I think those were 5 or 6 of the top ones, and then bookkeeping, as you mentioned, were the half dozen top categories that the unemployed or underemployed folks asked for.
That's right. Thank you, Teclo. And this one, we've actually been talking more about the HVAC techs, the diesel mechanics, those type of vocational trades that are important to the city as well. So those are things that.
Yes, sir, correct. And one other thing to add is that last time, Mr. Chairman, committee, we were under a very, very tight deadline to use the funds that we were allocated. As Arnold mentioned, about $900,000. We had to use them within like a 9-month period of time. And not only did we have to send out the money in that time, the classes had to have ended within that time. We're not under that kind of pressure this time. So we're looking at, and with a little bit more funds, we're looking at a little bit longer term classes, like an X-ray tech or something like that would take 6 months or a year even. Hopefully we don't get too many of those, but I mean, well, that's what we're trying to do, and we have a little bit more flexibility with this time. I think our deadline isn't for 2 years yet before we have to finish spending the money, but we're going to try to, we're going to try to get it all out in the first year. But it's good not to be under that pressure.
Is it $49,000 in total?
No, 49,000 is the initial that we've agreed on. Anything over 50's got to go to council for approval. So this 49 helps it get going faster, the ball rolling faster. They can start spending the money faster to advertise these programs.
Okay, good, because $49,000, I mean, it may seem like a lot of money, but in city dollars, it's not.
Correct.
And so
Correct.
my motion would be that we approve this MOU and that we encourage the city and management to liberally invest in the marketing and advertising, maybe not so much in the administrative side of things, to assist Laredo College with the promotion and development of the terms and conditions in this MOU.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Julie Rodnowski. Any further discussion? No discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? None against. Motion carries unanimously. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Julian, seconded by George Altgeld. And discussion? Thank you guys so much. Appreciate y'all taking the time. I really do hope more further participation from all of you to further our vision and our mission as a committee. All those in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Any against? None against?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. Thank you, everyone. Good seeing you. I'm sorry I wasn't there, but we'll be there next month. Thank you again.